Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Aston Yap from National University of Singapore. 大家晚上好，我是来自新加坡国立大学的叶凯俊。So my thesis titled Sinful Leisure is about a re-contextualisation of leisure as a state-managed aspect of life in the digital age. So my thesis begins with its research where I delved into the impact of pervasive surveillance enabled by smartphones and how this sort of surveillance has penetrated our most private realms and commodifying our data, affecting our personal autonomy and choices. So I examined this through the lens of the attention economy, and that has left us digitally exhausted. And echoing the Singapore state's obsession with our citizens' health, I began to imagine a system where the government's access to our online data has the potential to diagnose individuals with these symptoms of digital fatigue, and the solution to this exhaustion could perhaps be one of state-mandated rest, one of leisure. So historically, leisure as a state-mandated form of activity was practiced back in communist Poland, used as part of the regime's modernization policy to reward hard work for their workers in a socialist homeland. And in my project, I then attempt to recontextualize leisure as part of a government's response to wielding a stronger grip on her citizens' health. And the project speculates that in this society, the state leverages data from our digital footprint to diagnose individuals with digital fatigue, and then prescribes a form of leisure modeled on the indulgence of the seven sins as an antidote to this modern malaise. Riding on the paradox between desire and prohibition, this creates a leisure destination of allure and remorseless sinning. And ultimately, the project reveals an outcome that this indulgence in the seven sins will create a self-fueling economy that instigates a new form of leisure addiction, subsuming themselves in an alternative cycle of entrapment in the digital age. So the build proposition designs a new state-managed leisure destination that is spread across the leisure island of Sentosa, replacing the traditional mode of leisure into one that is prescribed. So, from our online data, each symptom of digital fatigue corresponds to a specific need that calls for a remedy in a specific form of a sinful leisure. And based on the data that's collected and analyzed, such as engagement time and the usage of various apps, the state is able to build a comprehensive profile of each citizen and monitor our symptoms of digital fatigue. And once you have been diagnosed, you will receive a letter from the State Department, and in the letter, you will find your individual diagnosis as well as a prescribed leisure treatment plan. So within the letter, you will also find a discovery guide to the towers of sinful leisure, and that will provide you with a glimpse of what this destination of leisure has to offer. So if you have been diagnosed with a lack of self-worth and diminished self-confidence from the curated perfection that you see online, you will be required to undergo leisure treatment at the Tower of Pride. So the Tower of Pride seeks to take the visitor through a journey of self-improvement and personal growth that seeks to remedy the symptoms of low self-esteem. Through the various stages of self-appreciation, building self-confidence, and attaining self-fulfillment, visitors will regain their self-confidence through the mastery of specific skills and through the aspects of coaching, self-grooming, fashion, culinary, and home decor. So the journey through the Tower of Pride takes visitors through a journey of mastery, acquiring new skills and confidence. After they have gone through all 5 stages, they will be crowned the champion of a specific skill and have their faces shown on the Hall of Fame. And as they leave the Tower of Pride, they will see their faces being flashed on this Hall of Fame, giving them a sense of pride in their self-growth. And after this, they will then commemorate the time by posting some of their experiences on their social media platforms. Next, if you have been diagnosed with a social withdrawal in favor for digital interactions, you'll be required to undergo leisure treatment at the Tower of Lust. So the Tower of Lust takes the form of a bathhouse that seeks to remedy the symptoms of social withdrawal by introducing humanly connections. And last, as a prescribed form of leisure treatment, provide visitors for necessary lasso spaces needed for them to regain their sense of social connection. The Tower of Last takes the visitors through a series of spaces in search for deeper humanly touch, through the different apparatus of the visual gaze, to the silhouettes for lustful desire and wonder, and the highest intensity that culminates in the last 2 floors of ecstasy, where there are themed rooms for pleasure and voyeuristic pleasure zones. Visitors would then seek to regain their sense of humanly touch and connection. And likewise, they will post their scenes and experiences on their social media platforms. Next, if you have been diagnosed with frustration and stress from digital overload, you will be required to undergo leisure treatment at the Tower of Wrath. So the Tower of Wrath is designed as an outlet for venting of frustration and stress. So the 3 intensities of wrath range from frustration, anger, to uncontrolled wrath. So through the different intensities of wrath, it begins with a verbal release of frustration to physical exertion, and lastly, it taps on the bloodlust and the want to inflict pain on another person. Visitors, in the form of a fighting arena, visitors will go up against each other in this fighting ring and have their match screened and watched by others cheering them on. And likewise, they will post their experiences on their social media platforms. So I'll quickly go through the last 3 towers of sloth. Sloth is designed as a tower of wellness and relaxation to remedy the symptom of general fatigue. Gluttony as a tower of food indulgence to remedy weight loss and suppressed appetite. And a tower of greed to seek as a remedy for doubt motivation to seek more, because information is so readily available in the digital age. So up to now, you have seen 6 towers. So you might be wondering, what about the last tower, the Tower of Envy? Well, the Tower of Envy is embedded within all the other 6 towers, where envy is designed for visitors to popularize the indulgence of the sins through social media platforms as a means for patients to commemorate and flex their experiences here. And here, they become the object of envy for others to be envious of. So ultimately, the project reviews an outcome that this indulgence in the 7 sins would create a self-fueling economy that instigates a new form of leisure addiction in the contemporary digital landscape, subsuming themselves and ourselves in an alternative cycle of entrapment. And with that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
看了这6个塔，突然发现好像每个塔我都想要去哈。那我现在征求有没有也想要进去这个塔的老师 ？Thomas, you want to be the tower?
I was just, I think this project comes with an irony. But the presentation feels is a bit too controlled, and I don't know if I think you're probably working for the Ministry of Health, maybe a collaboration with Facebook and Instagram, and I feel uneasy a little bit. David was so impressed. He said he did it within 7 minutes. I said that's very scary. But that. I mean, this is also an interesting discussion that we had earlier. I don't know if you're on our same team. Can you share your thoughts on this? Your words are much more precise, and I will make things more complicated.
No. Yeah. I completely agree with you, Thomas, and David. It's very dangerous, the project. But on the other hand, your approach is very attractive, very well organized. Especially, I was attracted by the last tower of envy. So he physically he didn't want to create Tower of Envy, but on the how can I say internet or something. How smart guy he is. Yeah, it's very good. But we all of us are wondering what are your destinations? It's kind of great presentation to the dystopia or something, or kind of the presentation of a new religion or something, or we are so wondering how come, why you present this well-organized world, and what's your destination as an architectural young generation? So this is my question to you guys.
I have a very strong question. I want to ask Thomas. Do you think this presentation can happen in Hong Kong? You don't need to answer. It's dangerous, but I just say this is a very
Yes, probably more subtle. And
So there's a
much
way.
more subtle and a little bit more, let's say,
ambiguous.
let's say there's a more mirroring
More vague.
effect. Yeah.
Okay.
Invisible way or something.
Yeah. But I think it's also talking about maybe two or three different things in here. I think there is a concern, maybe a new generations might not able to save the nation's youth. Thinking about would they become a productive members of society. And I think the concerns of this top-down approach is protecting the generations in here. That's my real reflections about this. If it needs, because Singapore can do a top-down approach, because it's precisely using the very top-down narrative. I think a lot of the project in Singapore is using this narrative way of telling, maybe question of decolonizations, creating a different type of space, more, let's say, less homogeneous, but in a way it's probably challenging in here. So that's why I thought about maybe his project was that it's probably has many different narratives. It's not just, as you pointed out, it has to be one direction in here. Yeah,
I just feel like I was in his pioneer review, and I find out this guy's is very brave. He's bravely to
Brief
convey-
or brave?
Yeah, brave.
brave. Okay. Yeah.
Have enough courage, like to actually encourage me to feel safe to go to Singapore.
You could also come and visit us.
Sakamoto-san, you want to say something?
Well, first of all, I definitely take this project as a kind of a dark project. The cynicism is going on, and then some kind of satiric, the kind of the quality there, definitely. However, when I look at your project more and more, right, it reminds me of, for example, like a COVID time. How government responded, to the nations. First it's really top down. Okay, they close the country and they come up with all these the kit, the checking the temperature, all these things, and it's so effective. When I watch the NHK, the TV in Japan, right? they are, they're dealing with, all these people's opinions and all these things. I really felt that, that's the kind of limit of a democracy, or some kind of, problem of a democracy. When I look at, top-down things, wow, there's such an efficiency going on. Do you know what I mean? So, at least, that I think, that it makes sense to question this, the real democracy, whether do we really support it, or maybe partially, the top-down is effective. I think, Singapore is peaceful, yes, and then Singapore is, famous for top-down to a certain extent, and then criticized. Sometimes people use, the term like a white North Korea or something like that, right? So, can you?
So this is Singapore is very good.
No, I didn't say. I didn't say. People say.
The director of the.
Yeah, but I think the honest is saying that maybe it's a right time to question, and then I think the project from the point of view, I think worth discussing, worth the looking at, the scrutinizing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to steal David's questions. Oh. Now, I have a questions about, because the format of this project seems very very conscious, and can you talk a little about that, because the intentions, the narrative, and the resolutions has slightly detached. But I'm going to give this to David because he has other specific questions.
Similar. When you did your, my question is about representation, if you will. The way you present your project, you gave us this envelope and tried to draw us into your story, right? We became one of the people who needs to be put in these towers. And it's the way you make these models or drawings, they're graphic novels. When other people are trying to use plans, sections, perspective, you're using graphic novels. And you intentionally, for me, maybe, use these kind of things that people would probably not approve. The way the model, the color, the way, the thing put together. Very intentionally for me, and especially the last tower. It's a hand, in real size, with a phone, right? So I want you to talk about why you chose these kind of way of talking about your project, because top down or not, we got draw and we put into your world. We're now in your Facebook world, in a way.
They don't use Facebook anymore. Maybe build up another question is that if you sing about a digitalized world, how conscious were you when you decided to make a physical models? And the things that you've shown is actually not digital, are very, very physical. And that's
okay, there are a few questions. Maybe I'll address them one by one. With regards to the scale, you might realize that at the beginning of my research, it's surrounding the phone, looking at how data is being extracted and being stolen from us in a sense. And my project actually began off at the domestic scale, at the apartment scale. So I looked at how, I wanted to look at how perhaps in a public housing estate, how the government would design houses to maximize the utility of these houses in the way that they can extract most data out of the citizens. Because the private home is I think it consists of the most precious data that companies and governments want from us, but they are unable to get because of the access to our homes. But then when I look at it from a Singapore's perspective, where it is so, some would argue authoritarian, it is more top-down approach. So I thought, what if the government were to impose a more top-down approach towards this issue by, say, forcing people to go somewhere rather than, and have these, say, towers of rehabilitation being camouflaged and masked within the island of Sentosa. So it becomes something that is not so apparent, where people don't realize that these towers are actually functioning as what they're supposed to. But perhaps for tourists, when they go there to see, oh, they see people having fun, but then from the government's perspective, it could perhaps become a propaganda agenda to show the world where model Singaporeans are being molded. And that was one aspect of my project that came as an afterthought after I finished the project. And reflecting on it now, that is my thought on how I slowly progressed from the domestic scale to these 7 towers. Yeah. And so for representation-wise, actually my tutor wanted to push me to do things that are even crazier, more satirical, more extreme. But I myself, I think I'm a very practical and logical person. That's why I tried to reconcile the two ends, my own internal struggle and what my tutor wanted me to push me forward towards. And that is why you can see it's very organized, it's very structured, and that is how I like things. But at the same time, there's also a sense of open-endedness to this project, where it almost throws back the question to the audience to think about how they treat their data in this digital age. Yeah, and just now, I think you asked me what was my take towards architecture, and in this project you can see that it's not necessarily a solution to any problem, but perhaps it's an open-ended one, where you see this vicious cycle of leisure addiction being explained to you, and makes you wonder if this could perhaps be the future we are heading towards. And yeah, it's one for you. I throw back to the audience a rhetorical question for you to think about. And reflecting on my project, there's also a sort of attitude towards Singaporeans' attitudes towards the government that's reflected in the project, because I feel like Singaporeans, we are very trusting of our government. So for example, during the COVID, where we had this app where it's called Trace Together, where essentially the government traces and tracks where you are, with who you are in contact with. And I think it's a very Singaporean phenomenon that we so willingly are okay and accept what the government tells us to do, and relinquish our data so willingly. And this then questions us, is our trust in the government being exploited, and are we trusting the government too much? So I think it is also time for us to question our take on these issues.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I think in 20th century, we divide function like hospital is hospital, school is school, and we divide the function, and you are even dividing more, I think. But now we are in 21st century, and we are wondering if it's okay to divide function. Dividing function make the people like a part of machine, something like that. So I think we are trying to divide function again and try to reconsider the meaning of the function, I think. So if I would like to take the distance of digital thing, I think it's better to divide, not to separate. So why you divide each tower by very small meaning, small, yeah.
Okay, so you may see that each tower has a very specific function that they seek to remedy. And part of the reason is because when I was looking for a framework to work my project towards, I decided to use the the 7 sins as a theoretical framework to frame my project because how can something so harmful actually do good? But if you think about it, the end stage, is it actually good? And why I have these 6 towers is because in the leisure island of Sentosa, I've actually located these 6 scenes in very specific areas. That is why, for instance, like the Tower of Sloth is located beside the famous Hotel of Capella, where sloth and hotel and rest all coincide together. Or perhaps the Tower of Wrath is beside Fort Siloso, where it used to be a battleground during the Japanese invasion. So whether I've no proper answer to your question, but yeah, that was how my thought process went when I decided to separate the different functions into the different towers and spread them across this leisure island of Sentosa.
我很快的说一下，因为我参加过他的这个先锋赛哈。那先锋赛最后我把那个他给我的这邀请函还给他，我说谢谢你的邀请，但是我不会去哈。但是我会错意了，那不是一个邀请，啊，这他给的这个邀请函不是一个邀请，就像你接到这个停车罚单一样哈，或者是交通违规罚单一样，你 you have to go， 它不是一个邀请，它是政府单位发出来，所以事实上它是很自觉性的在做这整个 project， 这也就是我们为什么会希望他能够上台的原因之一。那当然也有人问过他这个为什么是 tower， 为什么是7个 tower？ 他其实他没有讲的是，他这个7个 site 在选择的背后都跟现况是有一些关系的。那为什么是 tower 的形状？他也说，事实上他是因为要把这个，他认为政府会把这个当做一个正面性的形象来宣传，就像我们可能20-30年前，甚至在纽约的地铁上面会看到新加坡政府的海报的广告，宣传 Marina Bay， 宣传这个 Botanical Garden， 当做一种国力的炫耀和宣传，所以它整个 narrative 其实在建构的思考上面是很完整的。然后他也承认这其实是这是一种治疗机制，它不是一个，虽然它是一个享乐的 tower， 但这是一种强迫性的治疗机制。我想这样子可能在座的同学会更深入了解这个 project。
好，那我不是问题，不过我想要分享我的看法，就是我觉得这是一个非常迷人的分享，还有简报一个陈述。那也在你的分享当中，让我去想到，就是可能各位老师应该一样，就是想到1984或者是美丽新世界这种国家集权掌控的一种世界。那刚刚你有提到，你在这个计划其实想要传递的是一个国家控制当中的这种余热，然后或者是矫正人的各种习性，让它变成一种好像良善。那不过我的感觉，虽然你的重点在于这个国家控制这件事情，但是我得坦白讲，我觉得这7个塔其实已经是进行式，它其实是存在在我们的现实当下。然后我也认为，就算我们在台湾这样一个算是民主国家，或者说其他的民主国家，而不是共产或集权国家，但是我们也都在这7个塔、6个塔、7个塔里面不断的生活。那我们福音的不是国家集权，而是资本主义，或者是资本主义所延伸的很多的控制，它可能是私人的企业，或者是其他的控制。那而且我们是自愿的，所以对我来讲，这个你的提案它像是它比较像是一个提醒，而不是重新做一个设计。因为我觉得你提示的是一个已经正在发生，而且我们还乐于自愿的 follow 这个逻辑跟这个控制，所以我认为它是一个很好的讽刺，然后也是一种提醒。那这是我对这个提案的一个看法，谢谢。
I think
One more.
Many years ago, maybe over a decade ago, Spanish was an economic crisis, and they had a Spanish pavilion, and you have to enter with your passport. If you don't have a passport, you cannot enter. So once you go there and passport, you enter, there's nothing inside because they didn't have any money that year. And they come out, everybody was upset, but they cannot believe there was nothing inside. So I'm asking these projects in here, I'm enter, I don't have a Singapore passport or PR. Can I enter here?
In my project, it's purely for Singaporeans and for foreigners to observe.
Can we have one just for tourists?
Maybe I'll give you a special entry.
Because that's a critique right now. It says that if it becomes a tourist, then it becomes this question, just like the casinos. It becomes Disney file, and that error comes here. So that would become the critiques of it. And I think with Maki was also mentioning about this single program is definitely might not survive. Yeah, in here, because one of the tower might collapse before it actually really does what it's supposed to do. Anyhow, thank you very much.
Thank you.
我们谢谢邓同学，我收回我想要去这7座塔的那个愿望啊。然后我现在只期待说进去的时候不晓得要不要带手机，手机会不会被没收？如果被没收的话，可能7座塔慢慢会变成很不一样。但是如果没有被没收的话，这7座塔会不会到最后都还是一样的问题？好，谢谢。那我们接下来换场。